it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise. My Asexuality is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share mine asexual life journey, all to help you in yours. So if you've not already subscribed, why not? What are you waiting for? Subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So tonight I've got a special episode for you, which is a movie review of the film Argylle. Now, this is a brand new movie. It's only been out since the 3rd of February, and I watched it basically just after it came out. So, as far as I know, it's out the 3rd of February. That was what I saw it on. So this is a picture of it, which you can see on the internet. So Argylle is spelt with 2 L's. Just in case you didn't know already. And yeah, there isn't much written about it actually. So it says that release date, in the United Kingdom is February the 1st, and I watched it on February the 3rd. So yeah, in the United States it came out on February the 2nd, so that's weird. Came out a day later. Anyway, so what is the movie about? Please do not watch this video if you do not want spoilers. Do not watch this video if you don't want spoilers, because I'm going to spoil some of the movie for you. Right, so the movie is based on a writer, and this is what really appealed to me. As a writer and author myself, I love movies that are based on writers. And from the video footage I saw of the trailer, basically what I thought happens is that some of her characters come to life, and she no longer knows the difference between where her characters are just in a book or where they're in reality. Well, that's the impression I got from looking at the trailer. And I've watched movies before where an author writes characters and their character, at least one of the characters, comes alive. And the author then ends up talking to the character, and the author a lot of the time ends up being in the book with the character. And there's a whole blurring of reality. So with Argylle, there's a similar sort of thing going on, but more so in the end. So let me explain. I'm not going to give everything away that is in the movie, but I am going to give the basics of what the gist of the movie is about. So it's based on an author who's a recluse and prefers being with her cat Alfie to going out on dates. So she's very recluse and she looks like she leads a pretty boring life in her everyday life. But when it comes to writing her books, she puts a lot of excitement into them. And she's working in the movie on her she's working well, she's done a Q&A, and after the Q&A, you find there's a person in the audience that kind of stands out in the Q&A, and he is relevant to the movie going forward, but I don't want to give everything away for you. And so anyway, in this like book Q&A with this audience, books, questions and answers with the audience, they're talking about the book she's just released, and they're like, when is the new book coming out? Book 5, right? So she's just basically doing a promotional talk, audience Q&A with book 4. And so after this Q&A is over, you see her going to write the final part of book 5, and she ends it with the main character called Argylle going to London. Now, Argylle is meant to be involved in crime stuff, involved in spy stuff, and essentially the movie, as people have categorized it, is a spy action comedy. Now, with all the factors I take into consideration, I would say it's a spy action thriller rom-com. I was quite surprised that later on There was a lot of funny moments, romantic funny moments in a very kind of hard-hitting film in parts. So some of it was so hilarious. There was some shooting scenes, but when they were kind of slowing stuff down, playing music, which reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy, and doing like a romantic dance while they were shooting. And that's much later in the film, but it's really hilarious. I felt really weird laughing at people being shot because I wouldn't usually laugh at something like that, but it was so unbelievable that I just thought it was hilarious. I'm like, this would never happen in reality. Well, at least it seemed that way. But obviously, I always believe that anything you can conjure up in your mind and write in a fiction book, you could bring to reality because you've kind of done it for the fiction book and for the film. So it was very, very good, the film, I have to say. I really, really loved the film. It's much better than the trailer. And the actual guy in the Odeon himself, who was waiting for me to leave after I'd finished watching the trailers, finished watching the credits, sorry. He was asking me how it was, and I said I thought it was better than the trailer, and he kept talking to me. I thought he might fancy me or something because he kind of kept me there a long time. I was thinking, I've already said it's a good movie, but he kept asking me about it again and again. It was just weird. So in the end, I said it was a shit hot movie. So it was really good. So I definitely recommend it. And I told him I definitely recommend him watching it because he hasn't watched it yet, even though he works in the Odeon. And there is a bit at the very, very end in the credits that I told him about. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I tried to look away at that." So if you watch the movie, do know there's a bit in the credits. I was super annoying because this woman decided to leave and she was trying to go past me when the credits were happening. And there's a vital piece of information in those credits. And she didn't seem to give a shit. Whereas I was trying to watch that and she was coming past me. It was really annoying. Straight in front of my eyes, in front of my chair. And it's like I didn't. She go, "Oh, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." And it's like I was trying to listen. Luckily, I got the information I needed from the screen and what was going on. It's very important that. Anyway, if we go back to the story, so this author is a recluse. She preferred to go on a date with her dog, as in staying with her dog, not dog, sorry, cat. She'd rather stay in with her cat, Alfie. You think Alfie's a dog, but it's not, it's a cat. She'd rather stay indoors with her cat and than go on a date. And her life you find is pretty boring. So anyway, after the Q&A's gone past, she phones her mother up to get advice on her book, although all is not what it seems later on in the movie. But anyway, her mum says it's not good. You've left the character Argylle going to London. It's a cop out because we want to know, as the readers, what happens next to Argylle in London. And you haven't written that. So the mother offers to come to visit the author daughter to help her with the final chapter and brainstorm. And instead, she decides to go to see her mother and go on this train. But when she's on this train journey, she meets this guy who wants a copy. Basically, he doesn't want a copy. He's got a copy of her book. There's a couple of people on the train that have got a copy of her book that ask for her, I think they want her autograph, if I remember right. Well, there's one guy who's got a copy of a book and he wants to sit with her, and she's like, "Oh no, this other guy's sitting there." Then there's another young guy who comes and he's asked for her autograph, but this guy actually does sit down in front of her and he's got a copy of her book and he's reading from it. And then he reveals to her that he is a real spy. And you see him kicking loads of ass on the train and killing loads of people. And eventually he parachutes her out of this train. And once that happens, the adventure begins, if you like. And so you end up not knowing whether the stuff that happened on the train was part of her actual story that she decided to carry on with in her book, or if that's the reality of her current situation. It's meant to be the reality of her current situation as you're watching the movie. But what happens is, as the film progresses and she spends a lot more time with this guy who's a spy, they have a lot of people coming after them. And she realizes and gets told by this guy that the things she writes in this book are actually like predictions and they're coming true. And some of the things she's written in the book are actually going on in real life. And therefore, she's become part of her own book. And she's like with the spy helping him. But then partway through the movie, it sounds like the spy wants to kill her rather than being on her side. So then she escapes and she seeks solace in her parents. So her parents come to see her in London, but all is not what it seems. I don't want to give it all away, but there was a lot of twists and turns in this movie, a lot of who done it, bits. And I was like thinking, wow, this is just an amazing movie. It's very, very action packed. You kind of like kept seeing glimpses of characters who you thought were doing something, and then it turns out they were doing something slightly different or in a slightly different way, or things didn't happen exactly the way that it showed it originally did. So it was all twists and turns, who little bits of who done it, like who did this really, and that, and then it reveals itself, and then who did this, and then it reveals itself. But she goes from being a recluse author to being a kick-ass person herself. I don't want to say what happens, because by you say what happens, it's just going to give the whole film away. But I just thought it was amazing. I loved the comedy in it. I thought it was hilarious. I loved the fact that they've really blurred reality in this movie. If you're a person who's a fan of reality blurring, then you'll really love this movie. If you love action thrillers, I think you'll love this movie. They haven't said it's an action thriller, but to my mind, it is, because you kind of don't know exactly what's going on. It blurs reality, and you don't know whether she is actually experiencing these things in her real life in the end, or if it's still part of the book. And this is actually at the end of book 5, because she had to her mum said, it's not good enough, you need to write an extra chapter. So you don't know if this is a chapter she's writing that you're actually viewing, or if she is really this person she turns out to be in reality. And it's all blurring of reality, blurring of identity as well. Who done it, twists and turns, rom-com, action, really funny stuff. That the way they have done the kick-ass shootings, and you know I don't know how to describe it without giving it away, but basically there's a lot of kick-ass scenes with a lot of shooting and killing people. And instead of it being like quite sad, it's really hilarious and really funny. And the amount of things they've added to it, which you wouldn't expect in a killing scene, is just like really, really like far out. It's not something that I personally pictured would happen. I thought that, well, I don't know what I thought. It completely blew my mind, to be honest. It wasn't what I expected in a good way. From the trailer, it looked like the film wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I thought it would be just a boring movie, where when you see the trailer, you see a guy and a woman on like a motorbike, and you see like a tradition, the woman on the motorbike is traditionally skinny, wears like a sequin dress, and looks like a girl that every guy would like usually. It gets a bit boring, that type of thing. But when you find the character is very like, wears a lot of like just normal casual clothes, like jeans and a cardigan and top and stuff like that. When you see the transformation she goes through in the movie, it's amazing, because they really show her as a very anxious person, and you do get to experience the anxiety of the author for a very long time throughout this movie. I felt it's very realistic with the way she thinks and the way she behaves. And in quite a lot of the movie, she was a very innocent, like bystander type of person that wouldn't want to harm someone or hurt someone. It's very kind, doesn't want to be involved in spy stuff. Then all of a sudden, her world is turned completely upside down with a revelation, and things are not as she thought they were. But then you don't know, is that the book or is that her real reality? And at the end, they still keep it open. They blur the reality. They blur her characters into her real current life. And so it's kind of like really far out. I thought the shooting scenes, the rom-com stuff was absolutely incredible. I thought it was a really well thought out movie, really well put together. There's things you don't expect in the movie. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that. And really, do you know what I mean? Like, oh. And so there's a lot of good stuff. In the beginning, she very much comes across as kind of a like someone who I think asexuals would like, because she's a recluse, and not all asexuals are recluses, but a lot of asexuals are introverted. So she's kind of very introverted in her own little world, would rather spend time by herself, would rather be with her cat, and is not seemingly not interested in dating, and there's nothing very sexy about her life or her. But as the film progresses, there's a complete transformation, and she looks very sexy. There are sexy scenes in it, very sexy scenes in it, but with no sex at all. Well, some people might think it's not very sexy because they might have a different gauge of sexiness, but the outfits that's worn and the way that they dance together and stuff like that is sexy, I would say. There's some low cut tops in there as well, so beware, you can see some cleavage stuff going on. Personally, as a sex repulsed asexual, I don't really like that. But it's really weird to see the contrast between the author character in the beginning, and I think asexuals would be able to relate to that person when they prefer to date their cat than date a human. A lot of the time. And then, throughout the movie later on, they completely transform themselves. So it's almost like they go from being a type of person that asexuals would probably think, "Oh, that's nice," to being with someone that a number of asexuals probably think, "Oh my god, that's completely sexy opposite and not really needed." But there are kissing scenes in it, passionate kissing scenes and romantic stuff like that going on. I personally like that because I'm a romantic asexual. And nowadays, I don't actually think there's enough kissing in some movies. I think there's some implication of maybe kissing. I think a lot of kissing's left out in place of sex or not at all. But I think a lot of movies try to be unpredictable these days by not putting in much kissing. Whereas I think, good, let's have some kissing, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day as such. On February the 14th, I celebrate being single day. So yes, I'll be going out on February the 14th with myself. Anyway, please do watch this movie. I think there's some hilarious bits in it. I think there's lots of plot twists and turns. I think the way that the shooting stuff has been filmed is incredible. I think there's a lot of coordination that's gone into this. I love the fact that it's an author who's written books that basically come to life. Something really spooky happened on the way home as well from the cinema in reality. Something very, 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 very spooky. I don't know if I should share it, but it was so weird. I actually started writing my Diary Confessions book too, again, because of it and the movie. Because I need to finish editing Diary Confessions book 1, which I had to leave for a while, but I'll be getting back into that this coming week. So I'll be working hard on that. I've got some asexual interviews I've done that have come, 2 of which have come out, and one that's coming out on Monday that I haven't promoted yet. And I've also got Make Money, Make Cash live interview on Monday to do. So I've got a lot going on today and tomorrow. But yeah, something really, really weird happened. So I was thinking about my Diary Confessions book. I was getting a bit, like your mind kind of talks you out of things. You have really good ideas and your mind kind of says, oh, will this be okay? What will people think? And blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And so because I haven't worked on my Diary Confessions book for a while, I wanted to get out before Christmas. It didn't happen. I was spending all Christmas basically editing it. Then I went to Wishmas on the 4th of December. Then my dad was in hospital. Then I went on holiday, basically. So I haven't had any chance to edit what I needed to edit. And so I've still got edits to do before I publish it. But I want that book out ASAP, The Diary Confessions of a Highly Romantic Asexual. That's got to be done this month, period. So, and published. So I was thinking about like what I'm going to be doing to promote the book. And, I was going to, when you have doubts, get a little bit scared of doing something out of your comfort zone, that type of thing. So I was thinking, like, oh, like I was having some doubts, which I shouldn't do because there's no need to doubt because it's an amazing book. And, because I'm thinking, oh, is the second book going to be as good as the first? But the second book's probably going to be different to the first anyway. And, and I was thinking that it's my real life, it's not a movie, it's an actual real life, although my real life is like a movie a lot of the time. It's real life because I won't just, I work in non-fiction books and I will not just make something up for the sake of it. I won't dramatize something on purpose that isn't actually true, just like you would a fiction book. And so I was having some doubts and stuff, and I walked down the street to go home from the cinema. And outside a certain centre on the wall, it was so weird. There were some objects that had been purposely left there with some cardboard that said, "Take the risk." And it had a book, which was a geography book, textbook. This is in real life, my real life. And the front cover was open and it said geography on there. And then there was also like a black little bag. It looked almost like a makeup bag or a big purse. And it looked like there was a lipstick popped out of it. And there were some other objects strategically placed. And it said, "Take the risk." And I can believe it. I'm like, this is just like out of some spy movie that I've just watched, but this is my reality. What's the fuck's going on? Excuse my language. Because honestly, it was like I've stepped out of this cinema movie and some movie shit's happening in my real life. I couldn't believe it. But I thought my mind was in twofold of thinking. One was, do not go near the thing that looks like it might be a purse and have money in it because, I've seen actually these movies where this type of thing happens and it means you get caught up in crime because you get accused of stealing stuff and money or whatever it is. It wasn't yours, and that's how you get involved in crime and stuff. So I'm thinking, in actual movies, I've seen this happen. Do not do it. So I was thinking, do not. It's weird because obviously afterwards, I thought when I got home, it could be clues like the geography, the little purse thing, or whatever it was, the other stuff. But when it said take the risk, I think it meant take the risk of just helping yourself to the items. That's the gist I got from it. But I'm like, no, do not do that, Sandra. You're strong enough to say no and not give in to temptation. So it was just so bizarre. Afterwards, I walked a little bit further down from the wall. There was this guy that looked at me. I thought, are you responsible for that or what? But it looked like actually it was contents of someone's college or uni bag. Really weird. But when it said take the risk, I think maybe it was God and the universe answering my thing in my head that said, oh, it's a bit risky doing the promotional thing I want to do. And, like doing something new with my books and, and basically, yeah. So it was almost like in my mind, I was a bit confused and having doubts. And then that came just said, take the risk, like as in do it. And this is my real life. It was so bizarre. I couldn't believe it. That's what sparked me to continue writing my Diary Confessions book 2 again. not the movie did someone, but also because I saw these weird objects outside, like walking home. I'm like, this is not normal. This is shit that should be in a book. And it's like it's come out of a movie. It was so surreal. I thought, is it just me seeing things or what? But it wasn't. It was real. It was there, but it's just so weird because this is the type of thing that had I wrote an actual fiction book about it, as a fictional character, the fictional character will go for a look at the objects, pick them up, and try and work out how they got there and why they're there, and be looking through, well, objects either for their own selfish means or because they want to find who it belongs to, the objects, and hand it back to them. And then the person might meet the love of their life when they hand them back, or they might end up in an actual real spy stuff where they've stolen something and there's really a lot of secret crap going on. It's just weird. I just found it so bizarre. I'm like, what the hell are those objects doing there? And this was like reality. I'm like, I've just come up from a movie where someone wrote book basically, and the book came to life and she ended up being a character in her own book, but in reality, but then you didn't know if it's a reality or not. And then I'm coming out from the cinema and actually this experience is blurring my own reality. It's like something out of an actual book. But I know that if it was a fictional book, the person, i.e. me, would go over, look at it, start doing stuff with it, and then you'd end up in some bloody spy crap or crime crap where you're being followed and chased everywhere and hunted down. Your life's in danger. I thought, I do not want this shit happening in my real life. Please just let me walk by. I think it was God's way of saying, take the risk with what you want to do yourself. Don't get distracted by other things and shiny objects. Just stick to your path. Be true to you and just continue with what you are doing with your Diary Confessions books. That's what I think the message was. It was so weird though. Anyway, do watch Argylle. It is out in the cinemas now. It's an amazing film. Very incredible. If you like action thrillers, comedy, you're going to love this movie. Highly recommend it. Don't forget to watch the bit in the credits at the end. And give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, and grab yourself a copy of Asexual Perspectives book and Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook, both on Amazon, and you can get them from all good bookshops. Lots of love. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe, like I said, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Thank you. Lots of love. Bye.